Thanks. Good morning, everyone. I'll just wait. My name is Sam, and I'm a Senior Property Manager at Fonterra. A key part of my role is implementing systems and processes to help with the day-to-day management and long-term planning for our property requirements. Today, I'm going to take you through the journey of bringing a GIS system into the Fonterra property team. I'll work through the why, the what, the how, and then what we see as next. So traditionally, a property manager is viewed as someone that oversees the day-to-day operations of a property, but it's more than that. In our organisation, property managers are experienced subject matter experts who design and deliver bespoke property solutions to meet our business's requirements. We manage our property assets throughout their life cycles. This means we investigate, we analyse, we buy, we sell, and we lease, a little bit like Monopoly. In order for us to do this, a huge part of our role is the stakeholder engagement, both internally and externally. So why was GIS identified as being important in my role as a property manager at Fonterra? Funnily enough, also worked at council before, and after 4 years of frustration, it was one of the things that when I came to Fonterra, I said, this is what we need. What great looks like for us is being able to move from being transactional to having that portfolio view. As part of defining what is great, we've identified 10 key areas of focus. You'll see that the key area underpinning all of this is our data integrity and one source of the truth. An integral part of our success is ensuring that we couple property management best practice with the right tools. This is where GIS forms part of our property technology toolkit. PropTech is becoming increasingly more important in the industry to deliver results and enable the integration, informing and influencing businesses and with live data. Additionally, of these 10 areas, we can actually directly attribute GIS to about 75% of them, and that will make us more successful. So about 2 years ago, we implemented a property management system. It operates like a data management depository, where all of our information for each property interest is stored and then can be extracted. However, the issue with this is that it's numbers and letters in a spreadsheet and a series of legal documentation. What our property managers have is at the base between Auckland and the Waikato. This creates a geographical barrier to access our properties. Our ability to move around the country was further reduced with COVID and travel bans. This then accelerated our need to change how we operated. While Googling, Google Street View will always have a place, it only goes so far at looking at some of the rural areas that we actually look after. And if the ever-changing landscape of New Zealand, it just didn't quite go there. As a result, there is significant challenges and actually knowing what our assets are and being able to speak to them directly when discussing complex issues with our key stakeholders. What we needed was a digital twin for our data management system that provided an interactive representation of our property interests that integrated with our existing system. In order to solve the gap between the data and the physical assets, a series of core business requirements were developed. Well, some of these are pretty standard in the GIS space. Where we break off into a powerful tool for me as a property manager is having the access to accurate legal and cadastral data through LINZ, including ownership and title information. This includes having memorials and easements and data for each property. Having the ability to add extra layers, such as the district council plans, soil maps, any other GIS data that we might see as helpful, is also important. And finally, and most importantly, the ability to create and customize data layers on top of the mapping system's base map, which we can individually select, filter, and reference. To achieve this, we went out for RFI and we brought on the Local Maps property module. And we haven't looked back. The system has provided the most flexibility to do everything that we want in-house. We don't need to rely on third parties to make the alterations for operational needs, making the system for us more agile. Another theme here is that, again, we're not geospace technical experts. Pulling all this together, what does it mean for us in practice? How do we use this GIS to actually support and inform our business decisions? Our aim is to ensure that we match our portfolio to our organisation's requirements, using our expertise to transform a portfolio over time, making it work for our stakeholders. We validate, we plan, we prioritise. Fonterra was actually established as an amalgamation of dairy companies over a series of time. And as a result, we have interests across New Zealand, some dating back as early as the late 1800s. As a result of a lot of those agreements, we don't actually have plans identifying what it is we actually lease. This can be particularly true with legal boundaries changing over time with subdivisions and intensification. We need to be able to actually pinpoint on a map the whole area in which we actually lease or own. You'll see on this map we've created custom layers to categorise our interests. So we have expenses in red, right of use in green, owned in black, and income in blue. Taking a closer look, we can see the areas in blue showing the actual areas within a larger title. In red, we've also got a lease that's in the road corridor. Previously, I used to have many a conversation with Waka Takahi around, where is this place? What are we leasing? Why? So being able to actually have this pinpointed has been really important for us. On the right, you'll actually also see a headline of our property information. And then in here is a link directly to our property management system. This goes to our data depository that gives us the lease documents, the key dates, everything that we need to do. More importantly, in that system, it also has a URL back to this exact site for us. Having that connection between the two has been important. Now, I'll pause here for a second and mention that while we were able to and could include in our custom layers all of the lease data that is in our data management system, we saw this as a digital twin to our existing system, not a duplication or a replacement. With over 1,000 property interests in New Zealand, the ability to keep up with updating all of that with the level of transactions that we look after wasn't seen as efficient. But what we have here is our key requirements around how we categorise our assets. On a much smaller portfolio, this would be possible, especially with the dashboard function within Local Maps. It would provide the fantastic ability to have that rolled up view when speaking to stakeholders. One of our key requirements for the property module was having the cadastral boundaries. Part of being a property manager is actually knowing what we own. Rural areas can be a law into their own when it comes to the physical versus the legal boundary. So in this image, our farm is to the south of this creek. One of our neighbours would regularly walk his cattle along the farm edge up to his paddock in the north, much to the frustration of one of our farm managers. With the well-maintained paddocks, you would assume that we actually owned this property all the way to that stream. But once we chuck on the boundaries, you can see that all this area in red is actually council-owned, and he could actually be there. Having the ability to speak to the business unit with an aerial depicting these boundaries was helpful in having that open and honest conversation and bringing him back to understanding what was what. GIS and the efficiency of meetings has also been a game changer. The reality is that with a national company, most meetings are virtual. The ability to pull up a map and discuss in real time has enabled us to circumvent unnecessary consultant costs. Here, we were requiring an extra water to one of our factories. We had two options for a pipeline, around the curve or directly across. Directly across was going to save us a couple $100,000. The ability to... When we pulled this up, we were having a chat, and I said, hang on a second. We were able to put on the easement layers that are within the property module, and we can actually see that there is an easement that goes from exactly along the path that we had preferred. We were able to quickly determine that this was a council easement, and given that the pipe was for council, a chat later, and we were able to secure our ideal pathway at reduced cost and actually ahead of time. A major project we're currently undergoing is a review of all our existing infrastructure. With the complexity and age of our networks, some of our agreements are not formally documented, or the documentation has been lost over time. With the changing landscape of New Zealand's rural communities and the land use moving from farming to residential intensification, or under the most recent trend of carbon forestry, all of these changes increase our risk exposure where we don't have agreements. This is where GIS can provide a vital tool in our review of our legal arrangements. We have met with site teams, and we've drawn out or added the CAD files to our GIS. From here, we've used the tools to highlight the titles of interest, drilling down and investigating each title to see where we are actually protected. In this example here, you'll actually see one for Northland Cooperative Dairy, which was well before the creation of Fonterra. For the same reason, we're constantly searching for the open source data, adding them to our system, making inquiries with anyone who has GIS. We're then using that data with our property expertise to inform property strategy. An example of this is the council planning layers and soil maps. Adding this provides the visibility of the land use framework around our sites. We're able to see patterns of subdivisions and encroachments coming up from the nearby towns. This helps us identify what we need to do to protect our factories and our operations for the future. We have designed a master planning project completely around the use of our GIS. Pulling in all of those previous mentioned elements, we have moved from just an aerial and added in the various layers of importance. As we do this, we can systematically review all of the undisputed facts to build up that profile of the site and any risk exposure that we can to build out a pipeline of work to support the protection of our future operations and ensure that we get the best value for our farmers. This property selected at the top, we actually just recently purchased. The story behind it was that the site was standing on the boundary, and with all the trees in the way, he goes, nah, it's miles away. We were able to then actually send him an image of this with the measurements, and it turns out what he was saying was miles away was about 100 metres. We have been using the system for the last 6 months, and it has transformed the way that we work. With local maps, property module, the key benefits we have seen is the improvement in our data integrity. Property assets are identified and mapped out, increasing the visibility of our data, allowing for well-informed business decisions. Having it linked and pulling through data from organisations such as LINZ has really helped us keep this all up to date. It's essential in taking the data from being information to relating it to our business and our operations. Currently, the property team own and manage the data within the GIS. We're working towards bringing more of the Fonterra business units on board. Currently, there's about 20 to 30 divisions within Fonterra that use GIS in some shape or form. Majority of that goes out to third-party consultants. What we're hoping for our future is that we're actually able to start building that platform within the organisation of it all being one source of truth. In the future, we can see the adaptation of multiple teams using this for their own purposes. We look to link owned data to 3D imaging and photos to be able to see a property without leaving the office. With the customisation ability, we will further build layers, allowing us to purposelise our mapping system, ensuring it is effective and designed specifically for our use. Information is power. The more we know, the more we can bring people together to cross-collaborate and provide that high-level strategic recommendation. With people inherently being visual creatures, having a GIS provides pictures that support the undisputed facts, and it can bring people onto that common ground. So that's what we're doing at Fonterra with combining both GIS and property management. And drawing on my experience in previous roles, I can envisage how property GIS can be implemented across many industries in both the public and private sector, supporting other divisions with what their work does. Now I challenge you, how can you use GIS to transform your property space? I'm here for the rest of the day, so if you feel like having a chat, come see me.
Just grab your water.